Hello, this is Rebekah Freedom, and this is episode number 43 of Heard Not Seen, produced by John Beethan. Today's topic is going to be my mind-blowing second date. And of course, my producer suggested I should subtitle it, What Happened to the Other Guy. So I want to say thank you all for listening to me while I recover from a cold this week. There's going to be some sniffles, maybe some coughs, and a little bit of a deeper dispositioned voice during this podcast, given my current health. That being said, let's jump in with some quick little factual nuggets, some things I've discovered about myself on this journey called relationship, as I am a relationship counselor. And of course, I have joked for years, those who cannot do, teach. However, I am now in the doing process and the being done process. Thank you, Jesus. and what I'm discovering is that relationships are like the fantasy that we create about if I just had a partner, my life would be better and I'd feel great and everything. Like, no, they're like, the reason that feels true is because of this little neurochemical called dopamine. And we literally dope ourselves up. And there's so many songs about love being addiction, like Robert Palmer's like Addicted to Love from with the girls playing the guitars from like the 80s. Might as well face it, you're addicted to love. Well, yeah, like we all are. We're wired for it. And we're wired when we touch and we kiss to bond with each other. So the reason love is great, companionship is great, is because we want to develop this thing called safety and this like high that we get. But what ends up happening is that inevitably your fears or other people's points of view or all the things that, you haven't let yourself express yet in your lifetime because of survival, because your body's like, hey dude, if you say that to her, she's gonna leave and then you're gonna feel like shit. And your body's like, I don't want to feel like shit. I want to keep feeling great. More dopamine, please. That's why we eat sweets when we're with the person that we love, or when they leave, we're more prone to overeat, or we're more prone to caffeinate, because we're just trying to fill that dopamine gap, that like feel good gap. So when I talk about mind-blowing second date, I'm going to talk about the elements that made it mind-blowing, and not in the way that you would think. Not the way that you would think. Because this cold that I have, this fun little cold that I have, is really something that was my body's reaction to, I don't even know, like living in a labelless world and being a writer, like when you date somebody and they're like, no labels, you're like, oh my God, this is like the most frustrating thing in the world. Like, how am I supposed to like describe something that's undescribable that we're doing but not doing? This is very Friedrich Nietzsche right now. Like, this is very philosophical. Are we going to hang out with Descartes? Is that going to happen? What's going on? Is Socrates showing up? I don't know what's happening. How do we describe this? We're in Plato's cave and I'm pretending the shadows are real. All of those references will be in the show notes. So anyway, whatever, the person that I has no label that I'm spending a lot of time with and occasionally have sex with me is went to this thing called Intimacy Fest. Like, it was a whole like grassy knoll sort of rock pond. I looked it up. You better believe that I got online and Googled, what the hell this thing is, because he had purchased tickets before we started dating. And then he was like, I'll have no relationships when we're dating. This is just for me. I'm just going to do it. And then he like gets ready to go to this. And his mindset is still like, just for me, just for fun, just because I want to do it. And, whatever, like, I just need this. I need this for me. And he also does, he weaves in and out of, I think, the coaching sphere too. So I think that there were some really helpful workshops there that were going to up the ante knowledge wise, but some of them were experiential. And by experiential, I mean fucking orgy. And what's an orgy without fucking? So yeah, lots of naked people doing like the in and out gyration. Let's do the twist in your vagina. And so anyway, I am sick because my body was like not having it. It was just like, I'm developing a bond with my source of dopamine, my little dopamine feeder, and not to diminish it, but just, to bring it down to the neuroscience of like what happens when our bodies start to get attached to somebody. And then, oh my God, the thoughts that come up, and this is a really, I'm edging you up to why that was mind blowing the second date. The thoughts that come up about I might lose this because of this thing, this other experience this person has, created such like a force in my body that my sinuses got stuffed up. It was all like everything at once. Like I started my period, my sinuses got stuffed up. I had a freaking herpes outbreak, which, for all the 1 in 4 that have it, you know what I'm talking about. And for those who don't, just you wait. It's just a matter of time. So anyway, just uncomfortable, whole lot of discomfort, my body just yelling at me. And I looked up in this journal that my dad had. He was a chiropractor and a healer, about the significance of our ailments and the emotional correlation to them. And I looked up cold, and a cold was things from the subconscious not yet faced that have been there for a long time, and the person has been in the process of suppression, and they will no longer be suppressed. And then a stuffy head, in the way that I had it, was a processing through old patterning of abandonment. And then in addition, as this cold has moved sort of out of my head down into my lungs, there's almost been this freezing feeling of my lungs, which is lungs hold grief, right? So this is the setup. This is all the setup before like the mind-blowing second date of I meet somebody and we're having all these different interactions, and there's like these simultaneous things happening where you start to like build a friendship and get to know somebody, and then they're a lover, and then you're trying to figure out how they fit into your life and what type of person you're showing up as, and do you like that person, and is this the amount of energy you want to be spending, and blah, 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 and all the analysis, so much analysis. Anyway, long story short is 2 months pass, intimacy fest pass. I get this freaking cold. He comes back, is totally like, we need to talk about this. Like still in the world of that, like all the information and all the experience and everything that happened to him, and comes back and wants me to be as excited as he is. And I'm like, I'm not freaking excited. I am sick as a dog. My body is trying to process through this because I clearly didn't have like an emotional outlet. Like the dopamine just dropped to the floor. So everything inside of me, like your stress hormones go way through the roof. Your cortisol go through the roof, which means your immune system goes down. You're susceptible to like all the things, especially your shitty thoughts. Again, setting you up for the mind-blowing part. And so I was like, let's just let this lie. And he actually was so gracious. He switched gears, and a friend called him out, and he said, I just actually I learned this during the festival, and I want to take this moment to do this exercise with you to say, what do you want to be acknowledged for? And have me acknowledge you for it. And I was like, I just want to be acknowledged for being brave and for sticking around. And he actually offered it before I did. He's like, I just want to acknowledge for you that you could have left this whole situation and you didn't, and you're courageous and you're kind and you're still here. And I just want to drop the subject about open relationship. I know that's causing you a lot of stress. And let's just try monogamy on, or not even try any structure of relationship on. It was just like, let's just like hang. Let's just like you be you and I be me, you know? I would love to sing the James Bay song right now, but I will slaughter it. So I won't. Yeah, anyway, so he graciously took 2 days out of his schedule, worked at my place, brought me the things I needed to start healing and feeling better. And he set the intention of like, why don't we just heal? And I was like, great. That sounds just fantastic. Like pre him, and I've mentioned this before in my podcast, February this year, I just hit this wall of confusion of like, okay, well, I have a book coming out. That's a direction in my life. I've been a counselor for 5 years. That's a direction. But I still am like, what am I doing? Like what? I just haven't had that like focus and drive to really like make anything happen. So it makes it really easy to fall into like, I'll just hang out with you and do what you're doing kind of thing. All right, here comes the mind-blowing part. There's a little bit more story to be said. So I start to feel better, and Solstice comes and goes, which is, I think, always the equinox and the solstices of the year are a time to pause and really recognize the gift that nature is telling us. She's always there, and she's always saying, there are seasons to your life. There are seasons, there are cycles, there are the things that you think are going to stick around forever are actually just the darkness before the dawn. There's going to be a new day arriving, and you can either arrive to it or you can stay in bed. You can stay, covered up in the shroud of your points of view and just not greet it. But the seasons are coming nonetheless. They're coming. And the marker of summer and the marker of this day is so significant because in every joy, there's a little pain because that joy will fade. And in every pain, there's a little bit of joy because the pain will go away. The yin and the yang of it all. So this is the time of year where the light starts to fade. The day was the longest day it would ever be. And on that day, it was just very simple. It was just a day of my partner came over to my house, and we were sitting at my table, and I was starting to feel just a little bit better after my 20th cup of tea. And he's like, let's watch X Factor, which is like one of the world-renowned talent shows. And so we have my phone up on the table, and he's getting ready to do some work, but we just watch a couple of different things. We make some peanut butter toast with, I put cinnamon and cardamom and clove on it, and he's like, hey, I want all the things. You got all the things. I want all the things. Give me the things. So he spiced up his toast, put a little nutmeg on there, and he's like, nutmeg? Who knew? And we're sitting at this table, and this moment just overwhelms me with the beauty and the simplicity of it. That there's a person in my home who is devoting his time to care for my well-being, that I get better, and who maybe in some ways is taking his ownership of his contribution to the decline in my health. And we're watching these people display their mastery of creativity. And it's this group that wears like lined lights that line their suits, and they dance this like amazing choreography to this amazing music. We're watching this. We're eating the simplest meal, like peanut butter, bananas, toast, and I just have this wave wash over me, and like tears like started to come up, and I always feel them stop at my throat because there's something there that I've decided to not let them come fully through, but this time they made it. And my eyes began to water. And it was the first time in a really long time I was able to like look at him, and he was asking, well, what's going on? What are you feeling? And I was like, this moment is so precious. This is it was so full of miracles, of electricity and the phone working and the lights on and the food and the companionship and the caring and the intention for well-being and the warmth and just this like almost like womb-like state where it wasn't about what I could get or what I could give. It was presence. And in that moment, I, for the first time in a long time, felt every cell become filled up with gratitude, with something. The word I said was, I'm cherishing this moment. I wasn't looking forward to what was going to happen next or what had just happened or speeding past it all or having the in-depth conversations or, there it is, the cold, philosophizing about intimacy. It was just so precious in that space. And I realized like I just had this. And what was interesting is I was able to be completely dropped into that moment. And what happened was something reverberated in him and he had to leave it. It was too intense. And he started to say these things about what he learned other places and other ways, and that he always puts himself in this role of, successful relationship is not dependent on the duration, it's dependent on the depth of intimacy. But I always try to remove myself from being the person who is responsible for somebody else's intimacy. And he was telling me that in the moment. I don't want to be responsible for how you're feeling. And in that moment, there was such strength inside of me that I was like, nothing he says is about me. It's not personal. This is still my moment. And I can cherish it with everything. And then he caught it, looked at me and said, the reason you're having this is you created it. You called this in by being the being you be. So that created some small space to experience myself, the ways that I interact with the world, and my well-being differently. And of course, I watched that moment speed right by after I caught it. It was just like when you have a dandelion and you blow on it and you watch the seeds go out in the wind. And there it was in this perfect palm form, this round form. And now it's scattered out. It's still a dandelion in its concentrated form and its expansive form. And the wish went and continued on. And then the day came where we mark on the 22nd is when we met. So on the 22nd, we sort of made an agreement, if we're still in this together and playing this role of lover, friend, discoverer, explorer, whatever, let's celebrate it. Let's have a celebration. So he planned the first one last month, and I got to go to this gorgeous steakhouse in San Diego by a marina, and it was absolutely, all my senses got delighted. All of them were just lit up in this sweetness. And so this time it was my turn to plan it. I said, I got this. And the reason, and I'll go into the details and the telling of the story, but the reason that any moment is mind-blowing, sex, food, spirituality, whatever, is because you're able to be satiated fully in the presence of your experience, not looking forward to the next thing or backwards to the other, but completely a witness and participant at the same time to the unfolding of what you've been creating. And the creation comes really through surrender, only flickers of ideas, as if you just throw a match onto paper and you know that paper is going to burn, but you don't know how long, how hot, what else it's going to catch on fire. You're not quite sure. But the present moment is what creates mind-blowing experiences. And I want to share something that a friend who conducts something called the Evo Room, Jay Brown, shared. He said he went into the desert with a friend and she got out an orange for him and she said, "Why don't you eat this orange in front of me?" So he ripped open the peel and bit into it. And she said, "Is that how you do life? By tearing through it?" And he looked back at her and he was aghast to realize that his life was predicated on just speed of things and not really being present to the moment. So she said, "Why don't you stop and just put your lips on the orange and let the sweetness of the juice touch them and savor that flavor?" And he did. And she's like, "Why don't you just suck on the orange just a little bit and pull the essence into your mouth?" We narrowly notice that singular items like fruits and apples and kale and chard and whatever we eat, whatever plant-based things we eat, have sweetness, sourness, saltiness. They're in different ratios. And he was able to stop and taste. And what happened in his slowing down is where he could have devoured the orange quickly and never noticed any of those flavors. When he paused, he didn't want the rest of the orange. He became full in that moment. I became full completely in the moment of sitting in my house with my lover next to me, peanut butter toast, and cherishing it. And because of that, I was able to flick this match into this idea I had about a day together. All right, well, let's see what feels like. He's busy and he's got work to do. Let me check the train. The train's too expensive and it doesn't go where we want to go. I'll drive. So then I decided I'll drive and we'll go to a French cafe. Because the French, they know food. It's the epicenter, the Epicurean epicenter of the world, where chefs go to learn how to make 47 different sauces, among many other delights. So in Leucadia, there is this French cafe that serves these crepes that are just airy and hearty at the same time. They're large and they come in this triangular fold and they're filled with different things like Nutella and banana and fresh strawberries and cream if you are wanting something sweet, or they have pesto and vegetables and egg. And so we ordered this breakfast crepe, and I had this tiny little muffin that had slivers of almonds on top of it, just one of those like baby muffins. And I got tea and he got bulletproof coffee, and they mixed in cinnamon and different spices to it. And bulletproof coffee has ghee butter in it. So it has this natural, like almost burnt, creamy, really rich smell to it. And the texture of it just sort of like coats your tongue. So whatever flavor you have of like the bitterness of the coffee just sort of lingers in a way that is not obnoxious. It sort of lifts your senses, and it has a lasting effect as far as giving you a high throughout the day. So we placed our order and we sat at a little table under an umbrella right next to the 101, and cars passed by and conversation started flowing. And he was like, I'm not eating sugar today. And I was like, well, I can't drink coffee. And so we began to, tease each other because I bit into this tiny little muffin and I was like, oh. Pure ambrosia. I mean, this muffin had, when you taste like amaretto and toasted almonds and just like the fluffiness of it, and with just a dusting of powdered sugar on the top. And it was just one bite. And there's actually a Buddhist concept called one taste, which is, when you take it in for the first time, it's the first sip, the first taste. It's not the expectation of what it will taste like, so you can be completely present with it. And that's what the moment was. And then he drank his coffee and began to tease me. This is the best coffee ever. And I was like, stop teasing me. He's like, well, you're the one that was like, oh, and having an orgasm over this sugary treat you're eating. So, the banter began and the day began to unfold with this like delighting of the senses through food and this mindfulness about eating that I've brought to the relationship, because he tells me he's always in the expectation of the next bite, not the bite that is happening here in this moment with all its flavors. It's not the savoring of the orange, it's the tearing through it. And maybe I'll have another before I've even recognized I ate the first. And we do this in life. We become busy and wear it as a badge, as a merit. Look how busy I am. Look how, I'm so special. And I will say that my busyness sometimes takes shape of posting on Facebook like it actually matters. It doesn't. I could have one really good conversation per day, and that would make way more of an impact than the 20 stupid posts I do. But I like selfies. What can I say? So off we go from the French cafe. And we peek into this place called Seaweed and Gravel, which is like this old classic, like Honda, Yamaha, like biker store, vintage, like leather type of easy rider stuff. And I love that, and just the aesthetic of it and the smell. And so the day is just starting to already be packed full of our senses, just being delighted. And it was, and it was great. And so we got into my car and I drove, and he had work to do. So he was clicking away on his computer, and I just had music playing softly. And when I was getting in the traffic jam, I put on motivational words so that I could stay calm and present. And I didn't feel what a lot of women might feel, or partners might feel. It's like, why aren't you paying attention to me? I need your full attention. I felt so at ease with the unfolding, because every moment was the present moment. Even when I was like, that goddamn fucking app took me off the 5 and put me on the 10. I don't want to be on the 10. Where the hell are we going? I'm completely lost. I hate technology. Had a moment of meltdown in the middle of all my zenness. And then as if it were a blink, because what happens when you drive and you start to get in the rhythm of it, there's a hypnosis that happens. And we get to the Getty. And if you've not been to the Getty in LA, it's this beautiful stone cream structure that has all of these beveled lines and these long columns that go up, and that has like the north, south, and east wing packed full of like religious paintings of Renoir, Monet, expressionists, and then you have the contemporary and the photography. And then there was this one wing that is basically, the rooms are like the recreation of Parisian homes, like luxurious Parisian homes. So they have these candelabras that are gold and that are like very delicate with like angels' hands, and like, just some of the most stunning furniture, and just the craftsmanship just oozes off of like every piece, even down to the detail of the hands of the clock that are so ornate and delicate, yet they're wrapped in this strong, like thick glass and this beautiful like clock face, and then this ornate surrounding of like of gems and different it's just absolutely breathtaking what was created back then. And some of the works that took 2 years or longer to create, just the depth of detail and perspective, and they look like photographs. They look like the paintbrush became, the history keeper, and it just echoes, and there's certain pieces that just hit your body and fill you up with chills and just absolute, I guess, reverence for someone committing their life to this craft, that this thing should come through them and then be preserved in a singular place where you easily walk. And this is the amazing thing, the miracle. You walk from one wing and you're standing at something that was like created in 300 BC to another wing, 1700s. And just the ease that you literally are walking through time and taking in the energy of this, not to mention the whole landscape and the gardens and the view and all of that. And then I was pinging it off him, where he was lit up by things that I wasn't particularly lit up by. And we just kept going back and forth and having this these the richness of moments. And I find myself pausing to capture them by stating the actual texture, taste, smell, sound, and sensation of things. Because when we train ourselves to do that through the expression, the verbal expression, or even structuring our bodies different than to be hunched, we then become the dream catchers. That those moments start to weave into ourselves and weave into our well-being and weave into who we are and how we're in the world, and give us permission to be embodied, because so many of us only manipulate our bodies to feel good rather than to set aside our fears about what might come or what has been, to feel the depth of power in the present moment. So we spent about 3 hours at the Getty just getting drunk with pleasure, and it all goes so quick. And then after that, we went to Santa Monica Pier, and I drove there, and I wove in and out of Westwood, which is all these like classically rich, like estate homes that you think of, with producers like filling them and people in the biz that own them, and old money and new money, and these giant hedges and manicured lawns, and you're sweeping through this part only to end up in a shitty part where you're driving past Crenshaw and you're like, lock the doors, and what are we doing here? And LA is just a jungle. It really is, where it has its like parts where you would stand in awe of like a sweet waterfall, and other parts where you're like, we are going to get killed by Aztec here if we don't get out. Using the jungle metaphor, I don't know if there's actual Aztec in, the lineage of our filling LA. So we go to Santa Monica Pier. I'm frustrated up and down trying to park. He's trying to get this presentation that he's working on sent off in time. His battery life is going down in the nick of time. The hotspot clicks. He gets it sent off. I have to do this loop down Ocean Drive, go back, park, have my door open, and then I hear this knock on my window, and Joe's got this girl in his arms, and I'm like, and it's his roommate who thought we were pulling out, who was looking for parking, and she happened to just drive up at that moment and was like, Joe? And he was like, Jen? And then, I did names. Uh-oh. Well, it is what it is. All right. So anyway, people that were with me. So anyway, they see each other, and she's like, I totally recognize you by your walk and whatever. And it just happened to be the worst day for her. Because I won't air her laundry, but there's just a transitional of, events happening where it just creates like this sense of chaos and unrest. And she was having a struggle, and like Brother Joe was able to give her like a big old hug, and we walked, we kind of split ways, and we met again at the pier. Him and I rode the roller coaster and saw like the view of the Santa Monica Pier at night, like with the lights dancing off the water, and all the sweetness was there. And it was there because I got to be 37 going on 17. I got to have that, like that new experience, that thing that we say, like, we watch in movies and we're like, is this really as sweet as it's going to be? And I will say, even in that, we found moments to be irritated with each other. We found little glibs where the drama button went off and goes, no, this is too good. You should create a fight. You should definitely upset the waters. That's a good idea. Do that. So I just want to know why you get so irritated with me when I ask these questions. And then do the things that annoy him, and he does the things that annoy me. And Santa Monica, if you've not been, is this hub of staunchy meets weird meets artistry meets Hare Krishna. Meets psychic, meets Mexican, Nally, kind of, that's where Venice Beach is down there. It's where Muscle Beach was. My parents used to live there back in the day. And Santa Monica Pier is just got this carnival vibe to it. And all the smells of the funnel cakes and the hot dogs and the food that you'll regret eating, but you just can't help be drawn to the depths of salt and sugar, and the music of the people busking on the pier, and just everybody searching for expression in the neon lights of LA on the pier, with this juxtaposition of an ocean that's been there forever. And we've just built upon it. And to use that metaphor, really, that's who we are when we come into relationships. We're an ocean that's been here forever. And then we just start building on it. We build our piers, and we build our Ferris wheel rides, and we put our hopes and dreams there, and we make it an object in the middle of the ocean. And we make our focus on that object. This pier is it. It's the only thing that I have. You're the ocean. You've always been the ocean. So I want to close today to say that you can have mind-blowing experiences with or without a partner. Being in relationship is beautiful and magical and fundamental to your well-being, but it will make you sick too. It's not a plethora or this great euphoric state. It's a place to learn and to grow and to say, like, is this the way that I want to have experiences at this point in my life? And to the point of open relationship or monogamy or whatever you're choosing, whatever structure you have in your relationship, let that not be the focus. Let the focus be, how present can we be with each other, and how honest can we be in that present moment? How open a channel can we be to the God force flowing through us, and the waves and the tide that comes in, the ebb and the flow. So as I close today with my snotty nose and my short stories, I have noticed that there has been a bit of a trend today, and it happens occasionally, where spoken word wants to move through me. And I had so many good rhymes happening in the shower today, but unfortunately I couldn't capture any of them, which is the worst, but the best, because sometimes it's just for you. And know that self-expression doesn't mean that you always need a witness, but you need to be witness to your own self-expression. So with that said, check it. I have been single for so many years, and those years have built up fears that look like monuments. And then I met somebody that I thought could be momentous for those monuments and push them down, and we could build something up together, only to realize that I didn't need him and we don't need each other. We need to realize that this love that we speak of is the identity that we be, and everything else is something that we're just building. We live in the buildings of our minds. We construct them through different points of view. We construct them with what's been given us from our parents. We construct them and we build them up as significant, as if they are the things that we must continue to live in. But you can always move out of the building that you've built for yourself, the house, the home, the shelter, the garage, the garbage, whatever you're dwelling in is not in relation to any man or any woman. This body that you're living in won't even be something to shelter you for very long. It's just a place where you get to come and experience life as your heart song sings and your feet dance like Happy Feet the Penguin. Maybe you've seen the cartoon, and if you haven't, go watch it soon, because there's a message for me and you, and that is that you can be different. You don't have to be like the crowd, and you can sing quiet or you can sing loud. You can express to yourself the things that you need to know. But if you don't know the things that need to be expressed, let them flow through you, because you'll find that when you do, you'll be at your best. You get out of your own way, and the way that you do that is to surrender to the present moment and own it. And don't own it like the gurus say, Tony Robbins or whoever is trending today, whatever hashtag you're putting up or post you're reading of inspirational meaning. Just know that you can have that leaning, but that leaning does not mean that you have to do everything that that person says. Take what works for you, plant it as a seed, tend your garden, and pull the weeds, because the reality is that this is something that we're growing together in it together. And we weather the storms of life, not knowing that the sidewalk full of people walking by us have the same wonderings. I wonder if I'm good enough. I wonder if he will ever love me. Will I love myself? And how do I find a way? The way is already present. It's in the moment. And so I close with these words and this encouragement as you listen to me tell my story of freedom through struggle. Know that the struggle is something that we choose and we create, so that we don't lose out on the depth of experience of life, because that comes through the contrast, not through the sameness. And sameness, we find safety and we lean towards it, but we recognize that we can't stay there because there's something we're looking forward to. But don't look forward too far beyond the depth and breadth of your heart. Into me I see. Intimacy is for you and me. So be who you be. And in that, I hope, my friend, you're able to be set free. This has been Rebekah Freedom. If you want to be able to really push past your barriers, I invite you to call me, text me, reach out to me through my website, RebekahFreedom.com. That's REBEKAH freedom.com. Thank you so much for listening, and be set free.